Hey, good morning, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm talking to Garth Brooks.
Entering his second year as the LSU head football coach.
It was the only way I could get a foot in the door.
Joined by the icon, Kim Mulkey. Hey, Coach, great to see you.
All right, it's a pleasure right now to be joined by a young and rising star in collegiate athletics. It is Keli Zinn. Keli, it's not pretty outside. I appreciate you fighting the rain and everything to join us today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as long as it moves out before baseball, we'll be in good shape.
That's right. That's right. We don't want to be there at 1 a.m. again, right? But if
But
if Jared Jones hits another home run, maybe it's worth it.
Absolutely.
You were hired at LSU, and by the way, I joke with Verge Osbury. I say, Verge, I can't fit your title at the bottom of the screen. It's a long title, right? So Keli is Executive Deputy Director of Athletics and Chief Operating Officer of LSU Athletics. And you came here in August of 2022. Just for people who don't know you, what exactly are your responsibilities at LSU?
Yeah, so largely responsible for, and Verge and I tag team this on a daily basis, all of the oversight of everything that runs through the athletics department. And so that's internal operations, which, surround anything from compliance to marketing to business to HR, and then the external side of the house, which is really more the financially geared areas of athletics, whether that's sponsorships, revenue, oversight to a certain degree with all things fundraising. Of course, the Tiger Athletic Foundation is a separate arm, but work really closely with them. And then a big bulk of it is obviously our programs. And so we have administrators who serve directly as primary oversight of each individual sport to just kind of make sure things are going well day to day, the athletes are in a good spot, and all of those ultimately work through me and Verge to go again through Scott Woodward.
Wow. 21 sports at LSU right now?
It is, yes.
Awesome. So you're a West Virginia girl, right? Born in Petersburg, West Virginia. You told me a small town of about 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you attended West Virginia.
I did, yes.
Graduated there.
Let's go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers. Were you at the 2011 LSU West Virginia game, football?
I was in Morgantown. I did not make the trip here, but I've been pleased with the number of folks who have fond memories of making the trip to the mountains and enjoying that series. So it was a good one.
That's right. They played here and they played there. When they played up there, I think LSU was number 1 in the country, and West Virginia had College Game Day there.
Yep. Gold Rush.
Yeah. There was this guy named Tyrann Mathieu who played for LSU, who I think made 2 plays in the opening quarter, like tipped the ball in the air, intercepted it, knocked the ball out, fumble. LSU won big that day. But I guess my point is, you're coming from a school that has big time athletics.
Yeah.
But I've been to West Virginia Stadium and I've been to Tiger Stadium. Tiger Stadium's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So, what was there an adjustment when you came here, or what's it like to work for LSU?
Yeah, it's interesting because on one hand, I look at some similarities between the two from a standpoint of, fan base who loves their sports, has a ton of pride in it, really the state institution of, if you will, of each state, but it's such a bigger scope. And much more of a magnitude here as compared. So you referenced the stadium, right? You've got 60,000 at a West Virginia as compared to north of 100,000 in Tiger Stadium. Obviously, the footprint of LSU from a national standard, and one of the pieces that drew me to it, just the power of the brand, the history, you name it, it's really powerful. And so on one hand, right, college athletics is one where day-to-day type things, everybody has the same areas and departments, if you will, that makes it run, but how you do that, the level of pressure that's on it, the expectation, and ultimately the resources that exist are what the separation is there. We have a lot more resources, some pressure with that, but a good pressure as compared to a West Virginia.
Yeah, well, I went to my first LSU football game in 1987, and I don't really remember growing up thinking LSU is going to win a national championship in football, and maybe that was a problem. Skip Bertman came in, they started winning all these baseball national championships. Track and field was dominant. I think they won like 30 national championships with Pat Henry and so forth. But Yeah, where is the fine line between the expectation of, yeah, we should win championships, and I'm not happy with anything unless we win a championship?
Yeah. Well, yes, there's a fine line there, of course, but I also recognize, and I think one of the things that makes LSU so great is the amount of attention and how much the fans pour into it and their expectation for it. There's a reason why it's successful. And so they spend time, energy, money, right, passion, energy to pour into us. And as a result, we should show them reasons to do so and have that commitment end up a really good thing for them and worth it in the end. And so we take that as a lot of pride and know that it's a lot for fans to support, college athletics, and particularly when you have so many here who are really, really invested in it, and not just in a football or in a basketball, our Olympic sport. Growth and the attention that it gets and how much people love that side of it is something that's really, really special.
Well, and I guess we can talk about that right now. There's the discussion about we want to be great in everything, but there are only two sports there that make money.
Yep.
Football, which clears the lion's share to pay for everything else, and then men's basketball in the neighborhood of 1.72 million, I think.
Yes.
Cleared last fiscal year. So, like women's basketball, for example, I've had so much fun covering that sport, and Kim Mulkey is always exciting, and her teams, and the national championship, and Elite Eights the last couple of years. But the sport lost $8.5 million, right? So, is it a case of, well, there's a lot of free advertising that comes with LSU making runs in March, and maybe Kim Mulkey has probably brought on a lot of donors that aren't part of that audit that I look at?
Yep.
How would you describe it?
Yeah, and that's a dynamic that if you're a true business person looking at the world of economics, you'd look at the collegiate model, not just at LSU, but everywhere, and say, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on here, right? And how are you continuing to invest in programs that from a balance sheet, right, end up in the red and to a significant degree in certain cases. And so we look at it in a number of respects. One, the promotional value of those programs, and what then is the upside both from the university, from athletics, from the state, etc. And there's a significant amount of value on that when you look at the brand value of LSU as a whole, and certainly football and basketball is moving that needle significantly, but you can bake in a baseball, a softball, a women's basketball, a gymnastics to a certain degree, and all of those things, you find yourself with a very, very valuable asset that may indirectly, right, produce a return, maybe not in the area of dollars and cents, but ultimately equates to dollars and cents when you look at enrollment numbers and attraction and some of these other things. And so you do evaluate a lot on a marketing basis and the promotional value there, because if you were to ever try and get to a place where you're doing it specifically on the financial gain relative to an actual dollar, you'd bail out of those programs.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that Kim Mulkey, Angel Reese, Flage, Michaela, all these players, at least on my social media platforms, they often do just as well, if not better, than football.
Yep.
As far as like interaction and people, and like Anissa Morrow, last game, she's up there crying, talking about Coach Mulkey made me better and turned me into a real woman and this and that. Those kind of moments that go viral and everything, that's maybe kind of what you're talking about also.
Yeah, well, that's certainly a piece of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we certainly strive to win national championships, but it goes even beyond that. And what we're here to do for young men and young women, and putting them in a situation in a collegiate environment of what it means for them afterwards, whether that's a professional career in the world of their sport or elsewhere as a job citizen career, of what that means in the future. But we've got, a tremendous group who does it really, really well. We're proud of it. I feel like, and obviously my perspective's limited somewhat to the past, 2.5, 3 years. But when you look back on, take the tenure of Scott Woodward up to this point and what we've been able to accomplish, both from a competitive standpoint, but in addition to that, all the other things that come with that, whether it's academics, development of athletes, economic gain of the region and or the state, right? It's really powerful, and that's why we do what we do. And so looking at, red or black relative to an operating budget for a sport, we certainly do pay attention to it. You have to. But we're able to very quickly get to a place of evaluating those programs and whether or not we've got that investment right.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, and obviously football. Football, the universe, right? Here in South Louisiana, the world revolves around LSU football. I often joke, "Hey, sports is an escape, but LSU football is a matter of life and death." But off the top of my head, last year overall, the athletic department took in like $221 million and cleared like 1.7 of that, I think.
It was not a significant return this past year, no. And a lot of that was as a result of name, image, and likeness. Again, I don't think LSU is unique to a lot of schools across the country, but what you've seen happen primarily here in the past 2 years, and we'll see it again this fiscal year, is the pressure to offer NIL opportunities to athletes is beyond anything that we've seen. Probably the biggest pressure on our books. And so what starts to happen in that case is where you used to have traditional revenue streams that you could count on, you're saying to a corporate sponsor, hey, rather than buying that advertisement and giving us the money to run an ad or have that inventory, we'd like for you to spend your money on athletes. Well, that means less to athletics. Same thing when it comes to donors, right? If we historically said to a donor, or in our case, numerous donors, we need you to support scholarships for our athletes, we're going to them and saying, hey, can you maybe give that money to NIL, because we can figure out how to pay that scholarship bill through ticket sales or secondary market sales or whatever it may be, right? There's been a shift in where we're seeking dollars and where we're asking people to put their money. And so if they instead chose not to support NIL, we would find ourselves in a much healthier place, truly from a fiscal standpoint. But we're choosing to tell folks, send that money to NIL and work with Bayou Traditions on it versus coming to us. Why? Because if you don't do so, you're not going to end up with elite talent.
Wow. I'm going to have to watch this like 3 or 4 times back because you're so intelligent. I'm trying to keep up with everything that you're talking about right now. I don't know enough about NIL as I should. There's Bayou Traditions, obviously, that plays a role in that. And then your Gordon McKernans, your Raising Canes, your walk-ons of the world, they can do things independent of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, but when you talked just now about the big budget, the big number, Bayou Traditions is part of that number in terms of what you spend and everything.
Yeah, because Bayou Traditions is our mechanism where the examples I just gave, where you're seeking whether it's a corporate sponsor or a donor to provide funds for name, image, and likeness, if they don't want to write that check directly to an athlete and enter into a contract directly with themselves and whoever that athlete is, or a group of athletes for that matter, Bayou Traditions is the mechanism to do that. And so the collective is responsible for, to a certain degree, brokering those deals, but really serving as the liaison from a contractual standpoint, making sure that deliverables that are received from those athletes based upon the preference of what the donor and or the corporate sponsor is seeking. And so really, they make the investment, but then they step out of it. Unlike a Canes or a Gordon McKernan, who in their case, they really are running a large bulk of that marketing potential and are much more truly acting as third-party NIL of what it was intended to be when it first was legislated and permissible. And that's the big shift right now, right? And so the House settlement that's pending in court what it is seeking to do is to move third-party name, image, and likeness back to its original intent, which is the Gordon McKernans and the Raising Canes of the world. It's seeking to essentially eliminate yourself, right? If you're a donor wanting to support a young lady or a young man financially and treat it as NIL, you would not be able to do that after July 1. Now, again, there's a lot of things that need to fall into place for that. Settlement needs to be approved, and then there's a clearinghouse and some things that are going to happen moving forward. But essentially, and where I think LSU is positioned really well in the new, we refer to it as the new collegiate model, because obviously a lot of change there. But where I think we're really positioned well when you take into consideration our brand value and where we have the Gordon McKernans and the Raising Canes of the world, that's significant for us to move forward and be able to offer those opportunities. And so that's one of the things that's happening right now is via sports properties, right, which we're housed in a group, and our multimedia rights is through Playfly Sports. A number of months back, you may have seen where Playfly Sports launched a third-party marketing agency, and that was in anticipation of what was about to happen, knowing that there's going to be such a focal point on the corporate sponsorships. Playfly Max would house that side of it and be able to go do this permissibly in the new model.
Wow. Now, you had talked about the fact that you couldn't really talk much about this lawsuit that's going on right now, this House versus NCAA NIL, trying to go back in time, repay athletes from the past. What a mess.
It's a little chaotic.
Yeah. Kelly, am I just myopic? Am I just stuck in the past that, wow, somebody want to play at LSU because of Tiger Stadium and Saturday night and running out of the tunnel and the band coming down the hill and bum, 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 bum. I mean, all the stuff that I grew up on. That's why I loved LSU athletics. Hodson to Fuller, earthquake game, those kind of things. I mean, are those things still important to young men and women?
I do think they're important. I do believe we have found ourselves firmly in a place where you have to have both. And where that has served us well is if you look at the investment on name, image, and likeness over the past 3 years, you'll see ours is quite a bit less as compared to some. Now, to a certain degree, you say, well, then we should have done more. We're not pleased with an 8-4 football program. But what we've seen is kids want to come here, and they recognize that being a part of everything that you just talked about, coupled with the capability that we have and what we've shown to develop athletes to their fullest potential, and be able to create something really, really special for them, we can be competitive in this space, and we don't have to spend, $40 million on a football roster. And so I do believe that the shift that you're seeing right now is good timing for where we're at and where we're positioned, because you continue to see the pressures of name, image, and likeness, even with young men and young women who really, really want to be here, for them to turn down, in some cases, opportunities for generational wealth. They're just not going to do that. And to a certain degree, you can make the argument they shouldn't, right? And so at some point, something had to give. The give there is this case, and where it ends up and what it's expected to do, I think absolutely helps to improve some of those circumstances and release some of the pressure that we're seeing in cases where, everybody followed the loss of the number one quarterback in the country. And those numbers were, pretty visibly reported. There was a separation there of a multi-million-dollar commitment on that kid. And so those are the type of things, and where I know fans are frustrated, and to a certain degree rightfully so, I do think that gets better.
Are you talking about a salary cap eventually, or some restrictions?
So what the House case, and again, needs to get settled. So it's a $20.5 million revenue share that, effective July 1, if it passes and passes as drafted today in the courts, you'll be able to give that money directly to your student athletes. $2.5 million of that is expected to be in new scholarship money, because another thing that's happening with that case is, you and I know the world of the NCAA, where historically you've always had scholarship limitations. And so it's 85 scholarships for football, it's 11.7 with baseball, the list goes on and on. Well, effective July 1, you can give whatever you want to. And so take, for example, a football roster. If you've got 35 to 40 guys, you could technically give them 35 to 40 scholarships. And so some of that money has to count within that $20.5 million. And schools are going to be able to distribute that directly to their athletes, and everybody's going to be capped at $20.5 million. You cannot go to 21, you cannot go to 22, etc. Now, there's an opportunity for third-party NIL, like we've talked about, but that's going to be reviewed in a way where it's going to follow a fair market value for that athlete. And so the expectation is the current, chaotic world of athletics is whoever can write the biggest check gets to offer that to that athlete. Well, moving forward, the thought is that schools and whatever they're going to be able to offer, it's going to be the same thing, right? So kids aren't going to have to choose anymore about going to a school or not based upon significant financial gain, because that field is going to be more level, and everybody will be following those parameters. It won't be exact. I don't think you ever see a case where there's a true cap on a kid's value, maybe a cap on resources from the institution. So it'll vary a little bit, but it's going to be much better than what it is now.
The NCAA was like a turtle for years. Like they could not even agree on a national championship game, and to find the BCS. You ever rode in a Cybertruck before?
I have not. Tell me about that.
Well, one of my neighbors had one. I got in it the other day. I feared for my life for about a few seconds. He went from 0 to 85 in like 2.5 seconds in this thing. I kind of feel like that's the NCAA in the last few years, where we couldn't get anything kind of move forward. Now we got a 12-team playoff. Now we're paying the athletes like crazy. Now we got this transfer portal where literally kids are playing like at 5 different schools in 5 years. It's just funny to me. After no change at all, we've had arguably too much in too short a period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all baked into the governance structure, right? I know, and for years we all have been very critical of the NCAA, probably fair in that. But the reality is the NCAA is the membership, right? No one forced any of these institutions into it. It's a voluntary organization. We chose to be, a Division I, Division II, or Division III athletics program. But therein lies the challenge, is that forever sports have been governed by a national body where you're trying to govern everyone similarly. When take even just Division I alone, there are significant differences in an LSU as compared to the 65th institution on the list, from a funding, resource, how they work, where they're located, you name it. And so that's been a real problem that over the years has equated to very little capability to make change, because all those people are voting. You're trying to get some sort of a majority degree on it. We know how that works out in our world, right? And
Right.
So really you're seeing sports kind of embody an overall just human behavior challenge to work within that.
You guys at LSU, you and Verge and everybody, y'all probably can't agree where to go to lunch, right? Much less try to.
We're a little better with that.
You're more on the same page. All right, so LSU football, they got 18 guys out of the portal this year, highly successful. How are you and Brian Kelly and the staff working together on this? Is this a better model than it was a year or two ago?
Yeah, I'm extremely impressed with what has transpired within football, since that December-January period. And I think what happened there is we've shown that take the investment to name, image, and likeness. When given the appropriate resources, we can attract the most elite talent in the country. And so we were really aggressive on that. And there was a spend through the course of the portal that was pretty well beyond what we've seen in the past. And the results are there, obviously, from a recruiting ranking standpoint. Now we get to see what that looks like here in the fall. But seeing it and living a little bit more closely to it than some behind the scenes, we're really, really optimistic about what's happening there.
Last year was the 100-year anniversary of Tiger Stadium. You guys did a lot of special things. I think last year was the first year LED lights were implemented. There were some other things that you did. Tell me about how that went. What was good? What needs to be tweaked?
Yep. Super pleased with the overall product and where it ultimately ended up. We had some challenges in the beginning with that infrastructure from an operational standpoint, some things, particularly with the lights. I think our fans saw as the games progressed and we got more into the meat of our season, we started to get that right. And our crew has spent even more time on it in the off season, maximizing what some of the capability looks like and figuring out, how to get that in the best place for fans to be really impressed and excited about it. Obviously, a lot of good feedback on the boards. We've actually tweaked the main board even a little bit here in the off season and increased even more the size of what they're going to see visually within game. And I think that's going to be well received with our fans. So necessary upgrades, right? As you know, technology only makes it a certain period of time, and the lifeline of some of those things were quickly coming to a close. So we're pleased.
And then you got to find the balance. I mean, this has been going on for years, this discussion. Typically, Kelly, the older fan says, I want to hear the band play. And then the younger fan says, I want to hear the piped in music. So there's always that kind of balance between pleasing both, if you can.
Yeah, welcome to our world, right?
The thing you probably get the most emails on, I would imagine, or one of the top?
We get a lot of traction on our surveys, and I'll take this as a little bit of a plug. We do, absolutely. We read through all of those. We have people assembled in every area within our athletics department to very quickly work through various themes if you're seeing something significant, and to identify issues and concerns. To your point, you do see for every person who wants to hear the band, you've got another person, probably younger, who says, play more music to get us excited. But I do believe, and where LSU's done a really, really good job, and this certainly happened well before me, is marrying the traditional side of things. And again, there's so much pride in that and the passion of it. And then layering in what we're trying to do, which is appeal to a younger audience. So it's the same people who have been in those seats for decades will be attracting those back who are standing in the student section or in a different place.
Yeah. Well, I think Verge has a plaque on his desk. It says, but we've always done it that way. And it's got the Ghostbuster slash through it,
yes,
right?
Yes, he does have that.
So that's kind of the thing, because I hear that sometimes. We're LSU. We don't need, like Alabama for years had they're called shakers, not pom-poms, but they have those. And some people wanted LSU to do that, and like, no, that's going to hurt our crowd noise because people aren't screaming if they're shaking the shakers. And there other people have done different things, and the fans say we don't need to do that. We're LSU. So I guess that's another thing you battle with.
Yeah. Well, and there's a balance to it. And we don't always get it right, but we certainly seek to strike as much of that balance as we possibly can, and we'll continue to do that. But we do appreciate the feedback, right? It's great to get an email or a survey response that says, oh my gosh, this was incredible, and I had such a good time. But it's valuable to have the feedback for some of the issues and the concerns and overall opinions, so that we can continue to keep a really good pulse on our fans.
Well, if I go to the New Orleans Arena or the Cajun Dome or whatever, I'm going to pay $12, $15 for a beer. That's just reality, I guess. I mean, you hear about concessions too. Hey, I don't want to pay this much for nachos or whatever.
Yeah, it's we hear everything from parking to traffic to concessions to the band to music to the play on the field. It's a pretty significant review and opportunity for people to give us feedback.
Well, the thing I've been told for years is that the roads at LSU, they haven't changed, and the stadium just got bigger and bigger, and that's what you're dealing with. And I mean, I think everyone, just like whoever played quarterback for LSU, the fan can Monday morning quarterback that can also, should have done the contraflow this way or that way or whatever. I mean, they've been banging their head at this for a long time. I don't know if there's a perfect answer to it.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we do spend a lot of time on. We certainly have identified some areas that could potentially improve some of those things. And you referenced it there. Part of the challenge is there's only so many roads, right? And when you can only come in and go out in certain ways, but if we're capable of, and we're going to continue to work through this, but there's a lot of things that layer into it. If, for example, we could extend our contraflow, we believe we've gotten it right for how people are departing and coming in, because again, there's only so many access points to even send that flow of traffic. But if we could extend it farther, then you end up with less people stopping at a certain point, which can then extend out and continue that flow. So we'll work on that as much as we can. As someone who arrived here, 3 seasons ago, and very quickly had numerous conversations saying, we have to figure this out. This is really bad. You learn really quickly. It's not for lack of effort, right, in the athletics department. And I think I had more than one person who said, oh, here she is, the newbie who thinks she's going to fix this. And now here I sit 3 years later, still trying to find the secret sauce and the magic bullet to make it better.
Well, I say there's 6 or 7 games a year. If you're sitting in traffic, I mean, talk to your family about the game, listen to the post-game show. LSU fans, they talk about football 365, right? Yeah. And there's 6 or 7 games, so, it's a Saturday night. Most people don't have to work the next day. But, yeah, I can understand, especially those night games sometimes. I mean, I know working in the media, you don't get back till 2 or 3 in the morning, depending on how it goes. So,
well, and that's the biggest thing. And hopefully they know it. If not, we need to probably do a better job of saying it or trying to show it a little more. But we are so deeply appreciative of those who do it, right? Because it can be a lot. And on one hand, there's so many reasons for it, and they're making memories to last a lifetime and really passionate about it. But it has some challenges there, and it is not lost on us, some of the sacrifices that people make. But it makes a difference. It really does. And it's a reason why Saturday nights in Death Valley are so special, and why it's such a challenge to come in here and beat us on our home field. And that's a big result of our fan base.
I've got some more topics I want to hit. You have given an A+ answer to every question so far. You don't know what a lazy answer is, do you?
I would hope not.
You give me great detailed answers on everything, so I appreciate it. So football scheduling, that's Verge's department. And I joke with Verge about this. It's whatever you're doing, they want the other thing. So, for years I heard, well, we don't want to open with UL Monroe or Nobody State. We want to play a big team first game. All right, well, we've played some big teams and haven't beaten them the first game. Now it's, we got to play Clemson the first game. Why don't we play a little? Now, look, whether you played the big team first or second, you start 1-1, it's 1-1. So I don't know if there's a huge difference, but you're playing Clemson in the opener, going over there. Hard place to play. August 30th, going to be nice, hot, and sweaty. But any thoughts on future scheduling now, especially when you got 12-team playoff and you're still in the SEC that's just added Georgia and Texas and that so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. We're somewhat in a holding pattern right now with doing too much with our future schedule because, again, you've still got a little bit of that looming possibility of a 9-game slate within the conference, and that could create some strategy there. Getting too far out on it, as you know, becomes a real challenge. And then 10 years from now, you're starting to kick games and do those type of things. But we do love a big opener, and that's big time football for you. We talked a lot about our brand today, the value that is baked into that from a national viewership standpoint. And what that means is pretty incredible. We've got to, this year, get into Clemson and start that with a win. And at that point, I think we'll be well on our way. But it's definitely a product of a significant program.
Good deal. Men's basketball. I've heard LSU fans say they don't care about men's basketball. So how does Keli Zinn and your staff, Scott Woodward, how do they feel about men's basketball?
Yeah, I would say we absolutely do care about it. With that said, I understand the reaction to that and some of the concern because, we've talked a lot about resources today, and we have not resourced our men's basketball program to the level that it appears we should be in order to expect significant results there. Whether that's history, whether that's what you have in the bank, whatever it may be, we recognize. And if you take McMahon, for example, and where he's performed, I know folks haven't been pleased about that, rightfully so, nor are we, nor is he. But the investment into that program really correlates to where they've ended up. And so we spent quite a bit of time here in the off season figuring out how to make a shift there. We found ourselves with some capability to make a commitment for name, image, and likeness. I think he was able to be much more aggressive within the transfer portal. And then on top of it, you layer it with some investment in the staff there. I think he's got a really good group around him, both from a development, recruiting, and game planning standpoint. But we absolutely have a commitment to basketball, not just, men's basketball, women's basketball too. Everybody knows that. And so we are working aggressively to find ourselves in a place where we have all the pieces there, similar to some of our other programs. One of that is a new basketball arena. And at some point, I hope to be back here talking with you about that in a ton of detail. But we've worked really intently over the past, year specifically, but it was something that was a talking point when Scott Woodward hired me 2.5 years ago to bring that to a reality. And we're having really good progress in that direction. I think it's absolutely necessary in order for us to have a premier basketball program to also have a state-of-the-art arena. And the PMAC has served us well. There's a ton of history there and such good times and memories. But the reality is it's north of 50 million years old, or 50 million. 50
just feels
years
that way
old.
sometimes.
Yes, 50 years old. And we need to solve for that. And so again, we've made some good progress, and I hope to be talking about that definitively here in the near future.
Well, when I go to the PMAC, I don't think I'm walking into a dump. I mean, I think it's still a pretty impressive place. It's well lit. Everyone's close to the action. But what's always been lacking is they don't have the skyboxes, the suites to put people in for your parties and whatnot, your big sponsors. That's always been the thing that's lacking the most, right? Or one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I mean, there's no premium, right? And certainly from a premium standpoint, that's where you gain a lot of revenue. But outside of that, you just have some real challenges when you look at concessions and not having working kitchens and some of those concerns. Volleyball right now, folks may not know it. They actually live underneath the PMAC there. So for a place that doesn't have basements, we do for our volleyball program.
The dungeon? Is that what you're
hopefully not a dungeon. We've done a lot to make it look really good. But in a perfect world, we would find ourselves in some circumstances that don't have some of the challenges that just age like that on a building has. And so we deal with a lot of maintenance related issues there, from flooding and some concerns that we need to fix.
Well, and people tell the stories. Look, they went to the PMAC. Hey, I saw the Police, Van Halen, Garth Brooks, Billy Joel, Elton John. I mean, you name whoever, they played the PMAC, and then for whatever reason that stopped. And the River Center is too small. It's less than 10,000 people. A lot of people don't like dealing with the parking downtown and all of that. Yeah, and the new place, you want it to be kind of a balance between a collegiate place, but then maybe not too pristine, not too shiny and... What's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm getting at, right?
We want it to fit the fabric of LSU.
Yeah.
And you got to get that right. And there's a look and a feel and a movement to some of that. But to your point earlier, and the reason the concert stopped is because the infrastructure in that building no longer houses concert acts of today. And so just like everything in our world that gets bigger and louder and more significant, so is true relative to entertainment and concert acts, and those artists are not able to come in and hang the speakers they need, or the lighting, or some of the effects, the roof just won't hold it.
Setting the place on fire is not good.
And so that's where, again, there's a deficiency there to not just bring to life some concerts and entertainment opportunities that the people of Baton Rouge deserve, but on top of it, it avoids a revenue opportunity and eliminates that, when that would be a great thing for everybody.
Well, LSU women's basketball, they played at South Carolina a couple years ago, and I went to cover the game. And on Friday, I'm like, why are these people walking around with Journey T-shirts on? Well, old man rock again. Journey's playing on Friday, and then the basketball game's on Sunday. So I'm like, just imagine that. Like, imagine being able to go see a big band on a Friday and then an LSU basketball game on a Saturday or Sunday. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes.
So that's the future, maybe. Hopefully.
That's our vision.
Kim Mulkey says she's going to be on the beach with she doesn't drink a cocktail. She doesn't drink any alcohol, but she says she'll be retired by the time it's built. We'll see. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I tell Kim it's going to be a lot sooner than that. We'll see.
Well, good. All right. A few more things with you. LSU baseball, Alec Box. I mean, Jay hasn't really been too outspoken about that, but maybe there's some things he wants to tweak. You guys obviously added the new areas down the right field and left field line, which are premier seating, more revenue-producing areas, I guess?
Yeah, we're consistently looking at that, again, because of just the passion and attention that our fan base has shown for it. And so whether it's taking a look at some of the bleacher seating and the outfit, we don't yet have anything planned for future upgrades. And when I say future, we tend to live in a world where we look primarily within the next 3 years. But it doesn't mean that we won't continue to explore some of those things. It was important for us to bring in some of the premium that existed there and fix some stuff that was expected just from a logistics standpoint. But you've got a pretty special venue that exists for them. It doesn't mean that we can't make it better in the future and continue to bring in as many people to support that team.
Lazy River?
We probably won't go there.
Okay. No swimming pools, no. Yeah. Well, the box has been special. The new one and the old one, of course. Once again, the old. We don't need to tweak it. It's, we've got the best fans in America. We got the loudest crowds that come watch us play. What's the importance of LSU baseball and softball if they both host a regional and a super regional? How does that help?
Oh, incredibly. Again, from a national attention and promotional value is significant. But there's also revenue on that. And by hosting, that only just further solidifies the level of play and capability that you have as a program. And so the more that we can do that, the better we find ourselves in. And certainly this year's setting up to be one of those seasons where the two could really find themselves in a good spot.
With Texas and Oklahoma joining the league, will you get a bigger check this year when you go to Destin?
It's going up a little bit where we see, the big progression on that, because we're still under some of the old TV contract stuff, is when you're moving into the 26, 27 and beyond those years, you see a pretty significant increase and uptick in our revenue.
Awesome. All right. Let's end with just your boss, Scott Woodward. So it's kind of like, where's Waldo? Where's Scott? So I see him every now and then. He's not Jerry Jones. He's not looking for the camera and doing press conferences every chance he gets. But obviously, since he's become the AD, we've seen how many national championships have been won in different sports. So, look, no lie, you had big shoes to fill, right? I mean, Stephanie Rimp was like his right-hand lady for all these years at different schools. Yeah. And you stepped in and obviously done well. So what is he like as a boss?
Oh, gosh. Number one, I'm just so grateful to Scott because he hired me when he and I didn't know each other. And thankfully, we both knew some people who knew us and were a big piece of making that connection. And ultimately, we see where that ended up. But you referenced there, Scott not being the Jerry Jones. And he's going to be the last guy that you see standing on a stage, carrying a trophy for the world to see, because anytime that he is able to have someone else stand in that spot that he sees as more deserving of that opportunity, he's going to do it. And I think that's a part of the fabric of who he is as a leader as well. He is just incredibly focused on what do athletes, coaches, and administrators need to be successful. And that's where he spends his time. And so our dynamic is one where, he defers a lot to Verge and I for the day-to-day responsibilities and not getting into the weeds of that, but incredible vision. Very much focused on the future. I think if you were to talk to him 5+ years ago, he would have predicted a number of the things that are happening today and some of the shift in our landscape. And that's well positioned LSU to be able to react the way it does to some of these things. And so I don't believe it's coincidence that he's come here and found himself with 5 national championships and 5 different programs in a relatively short period of time as compared to some. But he does it in a way where it's going to continue to be about everybody else other than himself. And so a very unselfish person who just wants the best for our sports and our programs and for the people of Louisiana.
Well, I'll never forget, in less than 3 months, I'm in Dallas. LSU just beat Iowa. Women's basketball wins the national title. And then, he's there. And then there we are, like in Omaha in late June, and Jay Johnson's throwing the thing up. And I think I interviewed him both times. I do my best Scott Woodward impression. Oh, Jacques, it's not about me. It's about the coaches and the players. He, like you said, it's always about the other people.
Yep.
I just hired them, and they did their job type thing.
And that's him. It's between myself and his assistant. We're the one grabbing him when we need to get him on an SEC or a national stage for a trophy celebration, because if he can give that spot to an athlete who had an incredible performance to help make that happen, or a coach or an administrator who's going above and beyond for that program, he's going to step off that stage and tell them to go up there. But we still pull them along and tell them this is who they want to see. So it's fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I was joking with Kelly before. I Googled famous people from West Virginia, and they did not have Nick Saban or Jimbo Fisher on this list. Travesty. One day they'll have Keli Zinn on here, but also they got Steve Harvey on here. And as I joked with her, she knew Three's Company. Don Knotts and Joyce DeWitt are both from West Virginia as well. So
absolutely.
There's your useless knowledge of the day. But Keli Zinn, wow, how much information, how well spoken, and just great stuff for LSU fans. I will be watching this interview more than once. So thanks so much.
Yes, Jacques, we appreciate you. You're the best.
Thank you. Keli Zinn, thanks for stopping by Jacques Talk. We'll see you later. Have yourself a great day.